This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. Chevy certified service technicians are factory trained to fit your vehicle with the tires specifically developed for it. And with our tire price match guarantee, you get the best fit for the best deal. Let us do the work. Available on select eligible tire brands at participating dealers only. Offer ends 12/31/2025. Terms apply. See dealer for complete details. Visit Chevrolet.com/service to learn more.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
And welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Former President Donald Trump's New York civil fraud trial kicked off this week, and it had plenty of fireworks, including a gag order imposed on the 45th president. And that happened on day 2. And joining us now to discuss all of this and all the layers of this case is Gregg Jarrett. He is a Fox News legal analyst. He's also the best-selling author of a number of books, including his latest awesome book. We profiled it here on the podcast. It is called The Trial of the Century. Gregg, great to have you here.
Oh, it's always good to be with you, Rita.
Can you believe that they slapped a gag order on President Trump? Is that constitutional? Is that fair?
Well, most gag orders, especially broad ones, are prior restraint of free speech, which makes them unconstitutional. Judges do it all the time because most of them are arrogant and they think they're gods and can do anything. And most defendants don't have the financial wherewithal to seek an immediate interlocutory appeal by the time they do, the case is over. So that just incentivizes judges like Arthur Engoron in the Trump case to, issue a gag order. But this is very, very narrowly tailored. He basically, said that Trump cannot post on social media any photographs or commentary about his staff of the court. This after Trump posted on Truth Social a photograph of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer standing next to the judge's clerk and calling the clerk Schumer's girlfriend, which actually I found more funny than anything else.
It was funny. It was.
I mean, this is not a broad gag order. You can't talk about the case, which would be clearly and egregiously unconstitutional. Now, this is pretty narrow. You can't, talk about my staff or post photographs of them.
It's interesting, though. This is mild compared to some of the things that President Trump has said. Does this open the door to other gag orders?
Well, it conceivably could, but here's the difference. Most gag orders are to ensure that the trial is fair and that the jury is not prejudiced. But there is no jury in this particular case. It's a bench trial. The judge decides all of the factual and legal issues. So any further, gag order would be absurd because the judge is, trained to be capable of setting aside, such commentary in the public square and simply deciding the case on the merits based on the evidence presented in the four corners of the courtroom, which is not to say that, Judge Engoron is fair, objective, and neutral, because he's not. He is a far leftist judge who talked openly, stupidly on camera, about how, he's empowered to do anything he wants to and often allows his own emotions to dictate his decisions. That's exactly the kind of person who shouldn't be wearing a black robe and sitting on an elevated bench. But this is, after all, liberal New York.
The way you described the judge, and we saw the video of him sort of smirking and smiling, it reminded me a bit, Gregg Jarrett, of Judge Ito in the OJ case, like enjoying the limelight.
Yeah.
Isn't that disturbing?
I covered that trial for 9 agonizing months in Los Angeles. I was inside the courtroom every day. It was abundantly clear that Lance Ito was enamored by his sudden celebrity and loved to replay the Tonight Show's rendition of the Dancing Itos. I was aghast as I sat in a courtroom back then about how Ito would, whenever a celebrity, a famous person, an actor, would come into the courtroom, he'd have his clerk usher that individual back to his chambers. That was just one of the many things that was fundamentally wrong about the O.J. Simpson case. I've never seen a guy so guilty as Simpson, and yet the result, was completely different.
How dangerous is it when you see a judge like that, like the one you experienced with Judge Ito and the one we seem to see on video with Arthur Engeron, mucking it up a little?
Yeah, it's disturbing. It shows, bias. But not only that, this is a judge who has gone way beyond already what the Attorney General Letitia James has requested. Revocation of certificates of business, forced dissolution of any company that Trump has an interest in, a denial of due process rights. The judge sanctioned defense lawyers for raising arguments previously mentioned in a preliminary injunction. What a dope this judge is. An injunction has a completely different standard, and it would be malpractice if those defense attorneys failed to raise the same issues again in a summary judgment, which they did. I mean, Judge Engeron will get slapped down on an appeal over that maneuver, which, as I say, was completely stupid.
What about also the statute of limitations? Explain that, because it looked like a lot of the issues that the prosecutors brought in were thrown out.
Yeah, some of the claims are so old that they are literally barred by the statute of limitations, which the judge promptly decided to ignore at the outset of the trial. That is years 2011 to 2015. Now, there was an agreement by the Trump Organization to toll the statute, to extend it, but that's not binding or applicable to the individual named defendants, Donald Trump and his two sons. And so, again, another appellate issue in which I think any liability found during those years that I've identified would be tossed out. But, let me say this. This case should never have been filed. This is all about valuations of property, which is highly subjective. It's opinion. It's not fact. Disparities on values are quite common in real estate. But here the lenders and the insurers, Rita, did their own independent due diligence. They hired professionals, accountants, and lawyers, and real estate experts, all of whom confirmed that Trump's valuations were roughly correct. They found no fraud or false statements. On top of that, these banks made enormous profits off of Donald Trump and his loans. The banks earned $100 million plus interest when he repaid all of the loans, some of them early. So, it's very hard to claim fraud when there's no injured party, there's no harm, there's no victim here. I mean, legally, you can claim fraud, but, where there's no victim, generally speaking, the government never brings such a claim. But this is Donald Trump, so practice and propriety is out the window. We'll go after him with a vengeance, which, of course, is what Letitia James promised when she ran for office. She vowed to get Trump, prejudging a case which she had no knowledge of. And that is an egregious violation of the canons of ethics governing prosecutors, the kind of thing that people should get disbarred over.
I have so many questions. First off, your comment also about the businesses, just like you said, because the last name's Trump. I have talked to so many folks in the real estate business, And based on this, no one could do business in New York because they could be vulnerable to the same sort of variations of values of property. Everybody gets different valuations. You know, one person's property is X. Somebody else might say it's worth this. And there's a lot of factors that go in, as you talk about. How does this not send a chilling effect to anybody who wants to do business in New York or anywhere to say that, well, some prosecutor could come after you for a difference in valuation? This is a stunning, to me, the repercussions of this, if you take it on a broader scale, could be devastating.
Oh, I think, Rita, you're making an excellent point, especially for high-profile individuals involved in New York real estate, because this is a classic case of political persecution under the guise of a legitimate prosecution, and it's not legitimate. As I say, Letitia James has targeted Donald Trump because she doesn't like him or his politics. She made it abundantly clear during her campaign that she loathes and despises Donald Trump. And so she is abusing her position of power as Attorney General to bring a case that would, I think, be brought against no one else. And the judge is, in my judgment, equally biased for the reasons I've already stated, but I'll give you another example. He has adopted in his summary judgment this valuation that Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million, which is utterly laughable. If you know Palm Beach, $18 million might get you a porta potty, but that's about it. And Florida real estate experts down in Palm Beach are on record saying, "Are you kidding? The land alone, 17 acres in this enclave that is so high profile and coveted, is worth $500 million. That's just the land. And then you have to, consider Mar-a-Lago itself, which is, sort of the, America's Palace of Versailles. I mean, I think it's like 58 rooms. The ballroom itself, which I've been in, is about 20,000 square feet. It's got all sorts of ancillary buildings and properties and clubs associated with it. For the judge to think for a nanosecond that that's $18 million is laughable. I mean, I think down in Palm Beach, didn't Rush Limbaugh's property go for $200 million, and that's a shack compared to Mar-a-Lago. So, this is illustrative of the bias of Judge Arthur Engoron.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Learning through play starts with Lego Duplo. With Lego Duplo, toddlers can develop real-life skills while having fun with colorful bricks made just for them. Large, easy to grip, and safe to explore. When children express themselves with Lego Duplo, they build patience, problem-solving, and empathy. See your child learn perseverance and self-expression with everything they imagine and create. Visit lego.com/preschool to learn more.
Your gut affects everything, even your mood. So Ollie created 2 brand new products to take care of your insides. Ollie Big 10 Probiotic has 10 strains of probiotics, their most ever, to support a healthy gut microbiome, immune system, and stress response. And Ollie Super Good Superfoods delivers 15 superfoods in tasty gummy form. Find them at ollie.com and exclusively at Walmart. Ollie! These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistant's assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
How do you keep renegade prosecutors in check? I mean, as you bring up, Letitia James ran on getting Trump. I mean, she's out there laughing when she was on the campaign trail. It's like her mission. And there are a lot of people, including Trump himself, who said, listen, there's a lot of crime in New York. There's so many problems in New York. Focus on that. But yet her campaign pledge was get Trump. How does the American public or somebody like Donald Trump check the system so it's fair for all?
Well, in a constitutional republic based on, democratic principles, it comes down to the ballot box. But this is a blue state in New York, and, liberals, Democrats routinely win nowadays. But, if you're looking for somebody to blame the New York voter that put someone like Letitia James in office. And you can say that about all of the office holders in New York, including, the mayor of New York City and the governor, Kathy Hochul, both of whom were, we're a sanctuary city. We're a sanctuary state. Come here to New York. Well, then all of a sudden, thousands were bused to New York, and New York became a border state. And now they've changed their tunes, and they're decrying the open borders that they had once endorsed. So, most of them are hypocrites. They run on these progressive agendas that they extol as idyllic and wonderful. Reality, they find out, inevitably, is something quite different.
Now, Trump has said that he may testify. It's been interesting to see him in court this week, Gregg Jarrett, because he's been taking advantage of being there, using his megaphone, coming out. It's been actually, I think, quite effective because he's been able to at least get his side out of the story. How do you see that playing in this trial?
Well, I think the die is cast, having already ruled against Trump last week on one of the main fraud claims. It's obvious that Judge Engoron will find in favor of the Attorney General Letitia James and against Trump. That'll set the stage for a lengthy appeal. But I think the best venue for argument is not the court of law, but the court of public opinion for Donald Trump, which is what he seems to be doing rather skillfully. I mean, every time he's been criminally indicted among the 4 indictments, his support goes up, not only in the polls, but in fundraising. And, if Democrats thought that this political persecution by abusing the mechanisms of justice to target somebody like Trump, to eliminate him from the presidential contest upcoming was going to work, I think they found out the hard way that it ain't working.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now, he does say this is taking him off the campaign trail. He did say this, look, I'd rather be in Iowa. I'd rather be in New Hampshire. I'd rather be in South Carolina. Obviously, these are the early contest states. How do you think this affects his campaign? Or do you think it emboldens it? Because like you said, his followers, his supporters are saying, well, look, this is just another example of persecution, and he's a fighter, and I want a fighter.
Well, it's an interesting question, Rita, because, he can go to states like South Carolina, where he's quite popular among Republicans, as he did last week, and, he can deliver speeches in front of huge crowds. That's a little bit like preaching to the choir, right? But when he exploits a venue in New York just outside the courtroom where he's on trial in a civil case, and he rails against the prosecutor and the judge and the two-tiered system of justice that is prejudiced against Republicans, that's picked up by more media than the media that covered his South Carolina appearances. And so that tends to be more meaningful, and it perhaps resonates with people beyond the choir, to all of America, including independents, which he will need to get elected to another term. So, I wouldn't count him out because it takes him off the campaign trail because he has a huge megaphone that he can shout into outside courtrooms, in the hallways outside the courtroom. And, it's effective.
What about also the fact that the kids are also on, listed as defendants? And there's also word that they want to call in, the state wants to call in also Ivanka. They want to also call in Don Jr. and Eric. Of course, again, as I mentioned, those two, the last two, are listed, as you know, as defendants in this case. How does that complicate things? And how does that seem like they're just trying to divide the family, go after the family? It seems like every direction they're trying to do whatever, go after the businesses.
Well, my sense of it, having talked to members of the defense team, is that will not divide the defendants, the Trump family, but rather will, further force them to coalesce around each other. And, they're not going to contradict their father, and he's not going to contradict them. His deposition was taken twice. The first time, Donald Trump invoked the Fifth Amendment. The second time, he answered questions. So, he's already on record. And whether he will take the stand in this case in which the outcome is preordained by a biased liberal judge, I'm not sure it'll make any difference. But he's already on record.
Where do you see this case going from a timeline? How long could it last? There are reports that this could last for months. And do you think that President Trump will take the stand and testify? He has suggested that he will.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read through, his second deposition. But the point he's been making publicly is that his valuations were correct. He's not the guy that went out and calculated the figures and submitted them to the banks and the insurers for the loans and the coverage. He hired some of the best and the brightest accountants and lawyers and real estate experts and appraisers to do the assessments. But what they didn't take into consideration, and which Trump has been mentioning outside the courtroom with cameras rolling, is we never took into account the value of the elevated brand of Trump. Now, I'll draw a comparison. The Plaza Hotel in New York or the Waldorf Astoria, those are not necessarily exceptional buildings, but they carry a brand, a famous brand, and they can charge much higher prices when those hotels are operating than any other comparable hotel because of the name. Well, the same is true of the Trump brand, whether it's his golf courses or Mar-a-Lago or an estate that he might put up for sale. The fact that it is associated with Trump increases its fair market value. And so these low valuations that the judge seems to be relying on are ludicrous. It's probably potentially higher than Trump's stated valuations when he applied for the loans. Because, again, it wasn't his brand, wasn't factored in. So, if that is something that Trump wants to convey to the judge directly, then taking the stand is perhaps, something that should be considered. But, there's always a risk that, the prosecution side on cross-examination can do damage, which is why most defense attorneys frown on having their clients take the witness stand. I was the exception to that rule. My view was if I had an innocent client who has nothing to hide, why hide?
It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables. Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft, pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Summer tastes like Tic Tac. Tantalize your taste buds this sunny season with citrus adventure and orange. 2 everyday flavors that bring summer in every. Tic Tac Citrus Adventure is a yummy, vibrant medley of lemon, lime, and mandarin. And Tic Tac Orange is the perfect mix of tangy and sweet. Visit us at Tic Tac USA on social to refresh your summer with Tic Tac.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino. A meal isn't just about what's on your plate. It's about what you bring to the table. San Pellegrino believes the table is where the best of life happens. That's what makes gathering around it so rich and rewarding. And with their unique sparkling natural mineral water, San Pellegrino brings its best so you can bring yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And the individual, in this case, the judge, sometimes it can be extremely effective. Although in this particular case, I wonder with this judge, who, as we're talking about, has the Lance Ito sort of qualities to him. But you're right. If you have nothing to hide, sometimes looking at the judge or the jury straight in the eye, who knows, right? It could, just as you said, it could be effective. And he certainly knows how to communicate.
Yeah, it could make a difference. And I think what will be important are 2 other things. The cross-examination by Trump's lawyers of the experts that the government intends to introduce, who are going to try to say these were inflated values. If they can be eviscerated on cross-examination, that'll be important to the judge. And the other is how persuasive Trump's own experts will be when they take the witness stand. The people who were participating in these valuations, as I said before, the experts in real estate and the accountants and the lawyers who did these appraisals, these valuations. If they are persuasive and compelling in their testimony, that could go a long way to helping Trump in the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe they see where that goes and says, hey, look, obviously there's flexibility, there's change. You brought up the brand. I don't think any reasonable person out there would think Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. If that's the case, you and I need to buy it immediately, Gregg Jarrett, because it's a bargain.
No kidding. I mean, I've been down there. It is, it's something to see, and there's nothing like it anywhere in the United States.
It's gorgeous. I've been there too. There's no way it's 18 million. No way, Gregg Jarrett. Out of 0 or 2, I
mean, look, you go up and down, the waterfront, and there are these huge mansions that go for, 100 million, 150 million, and then you come to Mar-a-Lago, which dwarfs all of those, both in land and the buildings, especially the main building in the club. I think I'm sort of beginning to wonder, has Judge Arthur Engoron ever been to Palm Beach? Does he have any idea what he's talking about, or is he talking out his keister when he says, oh, yeah, it's only 18 million? And then the other day, second day of trial, you say, oh, stop, the media should stop blaming me for saying Mar-a-Lago's 18 million. It was the appraiser down in Palm Beach. Well, you adopted it in your summary judgment. You accepted that valuation. Jump on a plane and take a trip down to Palm Beach, and, it'll be an eye-opener for you, Judge.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully he would have greater insight. Who knows? I mean, I don't think even if you look at a picture of it online, I don't think even if you're looking at it from a distance, would you ever say 18 million? But
I mean, it's like the Vanderbilt, estate, which is so storied and so enormous. It's pretty impressive. And, it seems to me that the Florida real estate experts are right when they say, $500 million just for the land.
Yeah, and that is a far cry, obviously, from the 18 that he accepted. Wow, wow, wow. Well, Gregg Jarrett, you're terrific. Listen, everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. And Gregg Jarrett, thank you, first of all, for joining us. And, of course, your fantastic legal insight. I always love having you, my friend.
Anytime, Rita. Always good talking to you. Thanks.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.